Hi everyone, my name is Bridget, and today I'm going to be talking to you about one of my favorite vocabulary strategies, and it's called the Tea Party strategy. So, while this strategy might not be the best idea right now in light of COVID situation, it is one of my favorites, so I thought I'd go ahead and share it with you anyways. So, what is the strategy about? Students participate in an actual tea party activity in the classroom. Minus the tea, essentially what we have are vocabulary cards instead. And what they do is they read the excerpts from a text. So this strategy can be used as either a pre-reading or post-reading activity. I'll get into that a little bit later on. Through this activity, reading fluency and comprehension is enforced. It's enforced through the students discussing the big ideas and vocabularies as they discuss about the concepts with their classmates and listen to their classmates sharing their key vocabulary words. So how is this strategy used? It's really 4 easy steps. The first step is the teacher will make the cards. So if you're doing this at the beginning of a lesson or even at the end, you're going to look through the unit and you're going to pick out the big concepts and big words, and you're going to make some cards with some short definitions about this. I have some examples to show you towards the end of this presentation. Then you're going to distribute the cards to your students. Depending on the grade level of your students, you might give them 1, 2, 5 cards. It all depends on your unit and your students. You know them best. And each person is going to take some time to practice reading and really understanding the cards that were given to them. I almost call it like a product expert. You want your students to be experts on the keywords and concepts of the cards you've given them, because they're going to be sharing it with other students. That brings us to step 3. That's where the students are going to share. That's the real tea party of your experience. So you'll have the students mingling in the classroom, and they'll share their cards with their friends so that they can share the vocabulary and big ideas and have chats with each other to really reinforce the background knowledge of the terms. Finally, the class will come together and you can share what you've learned and some big ideas. So when to use this strategy? I talked a bit about this before in my opening. If you remember, I say I really like to front load my lessons with this. So it's really great to use this tea party as an introduction to your units. So later on in this slide, when you'll see my example of introducing an ecology unit to a grade 6 level, you might look through the unit and find some really big words or ideas, and you can introduce them through this tea party to get your students comfortable and ready to use this vocabulary as they move through the unit. But you could also use this as a conclusion to a big unit. Basically, if you're doing this, you're just reinforcing the key ideas and vocabulary and giving your students an opportunity to engage and use the vocabulary that was introduced. I also like to mention that this strategy is really helpful for English language learners. And that's because there's really no hot seat or no pressure for the student. It's just conversations that they're having with each other. So these learners get an opportunity to discuss the vocabulary in a relaxed manner and really listen to the speech being used within the classroom. So if you remember, I talked about some examples of ecosystems and cards that I would use. So this would be some example of the cards I would use. So for example, on my biome card, a biome is a region of Earth with a specific climate and has certain types of living things within it. The student that I would give this card to would become an expert of this card. They would be super familiar with it, know it inside and out. And then during our tea party, they might meet up with someone who has the ecosystem card. And that student would know that an ecosystem is made up of all the living and non-living things in an area. So together, the two students would discuss their cards, they'd discuss the vocabulary, they'd talk about the key ideas, and really become familiar with what's inside it. As the activity goes on, the groups break up and then reorganize into new groups so that everybody has a chance to meet with everybody in the class to discuss their vocabulary cards. So as I mentioned before, I absolutely love this strategy. Personally, I like to use it at the beginning of a lesson so that my readers have some form of background knowledge before really going into the text which helps them work through the information with more ease. It really builds on what we learned from last week with the 3 tiers of words. So if you're introducing some new academic vocabulary or some very content-specific vocabulary like you saw in my cards, this is a great way to introduce it so that when you're working through your lesson, your kids are really able to get the big ideas and they're not hung up on the vocabulary. So I hope you liked this strategy. I hope it's something that you find useful, that you might be able to use in your own classroom, and I'm anxious to hear what you have to share with me. Thanks.